How's it going, guys? Conviction 454 here. I know it's been quite a while since I've uploaded a video. As a matter of fact, I believe for this particular certification that I'm about to go over, I mentioned probably about 4 or 5 months ago that I was actually going to take the exam, and I did not get around to it until really just a few weeks ago. But anyway, this is going to be my official video on the CompTIA CYXA or CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst exam. Um, I guess I'll start by saying that this exam in particular was actually somewhere in the middle when it comes to overall like CompTIA exam difficulty. I would say it was a pretty good follow up from the Security Plus. However, I do not necessarily think it was a lot harder than the Security Plus. The Security Plus is pretty bare bone when it comes to like cybersecurity basics. And I feel like the CySA does a pretty good job at building off of that. Now, just to talk a little bit about my personal exam experience without, you know, violating any sort of non-disclosure agreement. So I had about, I want to say, I think I had 68 questions, so just under 70 questions. But for a contra exam, this was actually the most performance-based questions that I've actually had on any contra exam. So I had seven of them, which kind of worried me a little bit because, admittedly, I didn't study for this exam as long as I could have. I think, like as I mentioned before, I was pretty on and off with it. Like I started studying for it, and then due to some work-related stuff and other personal life stuff that I had to go through, I actually stopped studying for it for months, and then I came back to it literally just last month and decided to study for about 4 weeks to kind of catch up from where I left off, which was a little bit more difficult than I was expecting. But in terms of resources, as usual, I usually grab up some practice exams either from Jason Dion, or I go to like Udemy and just find something from, I believe it's Total Seminars. Yeah, I usually get their practice exams as well as watch their entire course. I believe Jason Dion's course is about, I think it's about 40 hours long in terms of course minutes. So I'll usually go over the course and do some practice questions, and usually those are the only two resources that I ever use for CompTIA exams. Now, I will say that I recall, I believe, yeah, like I said, 4 or 5 months ago, I did also purchase some labs from, I believe it's bolson.com, the same website used for the CCNA labs. So I recall doing those, and those helped, especially on the log analysis side of things. But truth be told, for the exam, I wouldn't get all that tripped up or all that worried about the log analysis section. When it comes to like the performance-based questions, if you have experience in really any IT job, so if you've worked help desk, systems administration, or if you've worked a SOC, then this exam will probably be fairly simple for you. But if you don't have any IT experience at all, then yeah, it'll probably be a little bit more on the difficult side. But I think all the skills that you'll necessarily need to pass this exam are pretty easily acquirable if you just, I'll say if you have no experience at all, probably study for at least 2 to 3 months. But if you're experienced already in this field, some people may disagree with me on this, but I legitimately think you could take Security Plus, study for maybe a month, and then pass the CySA. Really, when it comes to the CySA, it's really all like scenario-based questions. So they'll give you a scenario, of course, and then they're really looking for like how you would handle that particular scenario. So what type of tools you would use, like would you run a vulnerability assessment? How would you run that vulnerability assessment? Like using what tool? It'll also ask stuff about like the CVSS scoring metric. I had a few questions on that, but not too many. So I would definitely recommend studying that as well as frameworks like the cyber kill chain, MITRE ATT&CK framework, uh, things of that nature. The only thing I'll add is that for previous CompTIA exams, those tend to feel a bit more like memorizing vocabulary. But I have to admit, the CySA is a little bit more like practical, I guess, or more hands-on. It's still a very, very theoretical exam. You don't really have to have a lot of like log analysis experience or like anything like intermediate to expert level stuff. You really just got to know how to think like a cybersecurity analyst at like I guess like entry level, and I put air quotes around entry level because I'm not really sure if entry level cybersecurity exists anymore, especially with what the field has been throwing out in terms of job postings. And I mean, you have YouTubers all over YouTube talking about how difficult the cybersecurity industry is to get into right now. And specifically for myself, I've been looking into different ways that I can try and get into cybersecurity myself. For those who don't know anything about me, I have 6 years of IT experience at this point, working various help desk roles. I've even tried working at a data center for a little while, and currently, well, actually, I'm unemployed right now because I just recently lost my job as a systems administrator. But that's actually something that I'm probably going to talk about in another video, just to give you a little bit of insight as to what I'm thinking right now. I'm in a position where I might leave IT altogether. And I know that may surprise a few of you out there, but I don't really know if it's working for me anymore. But it's something that I haven't really made a decision on, but I'll probably talk about that in another video. Anyways, back to the CySA. Like I said, don't worry too much about the log analysis. Just really go through the objectives. And as a matter of fact, I have my paperwork here because I just wanted to go over the objectives that I personally struggle with. So like compare and contrast threat intelligence and threat hunting. I struggled a little bit with like process improvements and like security operations and stuff like that, mainly because one, again, I didn't study for the exam as hard as I should have, and two, because I just don't really have a lot of cybersecurity experience yet. Speaking of which, I've actually been working on some home labs that I decided to post publicly on YouTube. So if you guys want to check that out, I've been working on various things like Windows forensics, the usual stuff like threat detection and response. I even have like an Azure Sentinel lab where I go through the process of creating an analytics rule and then detecting suspicious logins and then running like a PowerShell execution attack. And I'm really trying to just build from that, just so I can not only showcase my skills to employers, of course, but to also, maybe show you guys something that you haven't seen before, and also just learn by doing. Because really, at the end of the day, when it comes to cybersecurity, you're just not going to learn as much as you need to from taking exams, reading books, watching videos. That's what you call passive learning. And when it comes to, I would say, not even just cybersecurity, but tech in general, passive learning just isn't enough. You really have to get your hands dirty with actual systems in order to really, at this stage, just to even get into the field, it seems. Because right now, there's a lot of people that are trying to get into tech, not just cybersecurity. And a lot of people often get those two different concepts misconstrued. There's getting into tech in general and actually getting like experience with the technologies you'll be securing, and then there's actually getting experience with securing those systems. And so a lot of people need to start over here before they get over here. And so I'm kind of, I'm one of those people that are in the middle right now, trying to figure out if security is even really for me. And truth be told, I will say to this point in my career, I do have like a little bit of security exposure, but it's really more of like the, dare I say, like common sense stuff, like maybe antivirus, phishing analysis, things of that nature. So I'm really trying to step up and improve from there. But anyways, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the CompTIA, the CySA. Again, I probably should have studied for it a little bit longer. As a matter of fact, my score wasn't the greatest. I'll just be transparent. I only scored like a 775 or something like that. So definitely not the best score. But again, studied it for 4 or 5 months. Took probably like a 5-6 month break, something like that, and then got back to it. So And also, at the same time, I tend to study for exams, like multiple exams at once. So while I was studying for the CySA, I was also studying for the SC200 as well as the AZ500. Speaking of which, I did pass the SC200 as well. I'm probably going to make a separate video on that. But anyways, if you remember nothing else, just remember that it's not that much more difficult than the Security Plus. I will say that although log analysis wasn't a large portion of the exam, definitely understand how to read logs. There was no mention of like Wireshark or packet capturing anything on there. Understand different tools like intrusion detection and intrusion prevention, as well as what a SIM is. And really just know how to think like an analyst and really just go over the objectives, because those do a pretty good job at telling you what you need to know. But if there's any questions or anything, feel free to leave a comment. But I think, yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for this video. As usual, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.